Harsh reality for the 12 lawmakers on the budget cutting super committee, as it's being called. They begin their first official meetings this week. The group has until Thanksgiving to figure out how to avoid mandatory spending cuts by knocking out close to $2 trillion from the federal budget deficit. But there's a list of federal programs that they can't even think about cutting. Paul Singer's an investigative reporter for Congressional Quarterly's Roll Call. And Paul, this can't cut list made up of about 150 programs totaling about $1.7 trillion. This is fascinating. It's the first that a lot of us had ever heard of the list or seen of the list. What is it? How did it come about?
This list is the list that applies if the committee fails to come up with agreement on what to cut.
Okay.
The deal is, in the 1980s, Congress passed something called the Graham-Rudman-Hollings Law that was essentially automatic cuts if our deficit targets aren't met. But they set aside the whole list of exemptions. Well, we can't really cut Pell Grants. Well, we can't really cut Social Security and Medicare. Well, we can't cut a bunch of other things. And that list has basically stayed around for 25 years. So now, when they passed the debt bill back in the summer, they said, all right, committee, super committee, go out and find, $1.2, $1.5 trillion worth of cuts.
But don't touch these things?
Well, no. What they said is, if you fail, there will be an automatic cut of $1.5 trillion across the budget. But these programs are protected from those cuts, which means there may be, and for instance, on this list is basically every veterans program.
What do these programs have in common, the programs on this list?
Well, some of them have in common that they are mandatory, that the government has already sort of promised to pay them in the past. For instance, there are pensions to the widows of members of Congress on here. There are pensions to former members of Congress on here. There's the president's salary. It's all stuff that the government has at various times committed to paying. And what the way the law works is this committee, the super committee, can go ahead and agree in a bipartisan way and then vote to reduce these payments. But if they don't come to some sort of agreement on it, the automatic spending cuts can't touch these programs. And there's a raft of them, a black lung program, all kinds of stuff you haven't even thought about.
Some of them are quite obscure. Paul, thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having us.
There's some news developing.